Welcome to the Family Banking Show with your hosts Rob, Derek, and John, where we dive into the world of the infinite banking concept and discuss personal banking strategies to secure your legacy and build generational wealth. We're glad you're here, and we hope this episode serves you well.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Family Banking Show. We're your hosts, Derek, Rob, and John. Guys, how's it going this week?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, it's good. It's summer has not quit in Minnesota. Right. Yesterday, I think it was 85 degrees, and we're in like end of October, and I'm just loving fall right now. It's just been super nice.
Yeah, me too.
You say that. Rob's got his golf shirt on, and John's got his Patagonia pullover, and I'm wearing a flannel. So
yeah, that's true.
We're across the board.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there, though. I mean, yeah, you got a good fall, John. So good.
I'm the luckiest new resident to Minnesota with like snow last winter and super easy other season. So yeah, I'm thankful. I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, it's been great weather, yes. And guys, as we're shifting our focus for this podcast to any new listeners that might be joining or existing listeners, we want to give you a heads up as to where we've been and where we're going for the next couple weeks, if not months ahead. Of course, we've just finished our Becoming Your Own Banker series by our Nelson Nash, which laid the foundation to what the family banking system is and what infinite banking is as a concept. And now as we look forward, we're going to be starting a new series called Faith and Finance, where we're going to be applying not only family banking principles, but we're going to be coupling them with biblical stewardship and what the Bible has to say about family wealth and preserving those resources that you have. And then also, guys, we're going to be taking a look at some book reviews potentially in the future, and also some technical mechanics behind whole life insurance and the infinite banking concept. So I'm excited for what comes ahead, and I hope you guys are as well. John, why don't you talk to us a little bit about today's episode, what we're going to be talking about, and just in general?
Absolutely. So to start off our Faith and Finance series, we are going through the parable of the talents. So if you have a Bible, we'll be taking it out of Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 through 30. And it's one of my personal favorites where it's very clear. I think overall it's clear that the Bible has something to say about money. In fact, it's like one of the most visited topics, especially in the Gospels, the four Gospels. And particularly, this gives us a more practical and just real understanding of what we do with what we're given. And so I'm excited that this is the start of our Faith and Finance series. We believe that infinite banking and financial stewardship is important, but really ultimately and overall that it's a tool to live a life on purpose, live a life according to what God has called us to. And ultimately, we're the Family Banking Show. We say it often, but to strengthen families for generations to come. And so we're super excited about it. I'm super excited about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, this episode, John, as you said, the parable of the talents, just to give our listeners just a brief overview as to what this section of Matthew 25 is about. Jesus is teaching a parable, which is kind of like a story or an analogy. What he's trying to get across here is, while we as Christians wait for him to return to earth, what are we to be doing? How are we to be stewarding the resources that God has given us? And the unit of measure during the time of this parable is called a talent. Now, depending on where we look, what we turn to, or who you think of, or what theologians are saying, a talent is a unit of measure. We may not know exactly or specifically how much a talent was worth, but I think it's pretty safe to say that it is a large sum of money. My resources have said as much as 20 years' wages, one talent. So, for example, if you made $100,000 in a year, times that by 20, that's $2 million. That would be just one talent. And in this parable, we have three servants. One is given 5 talents. Another is given 2 talents, and another is given just 1 single talent. And as this master, in this case would be Jesus, as he's returning, he's asking these servants, what have you done with the resources that I've given to you? What have you done with these talents? And the idea behind it is to be a good and faithful servant or a steward meant that you would be multiplying what God has already given you. So for the servant that had 5 talents, he grew that to a total of 10. To the servant that had 2 talents, he grew that to a total of 4. But the servant that had 1 talent, he thought it was wise and prudent to just sit on it. And because he was maybe risk averse and didn't want to lose the talent. But Jesus criticizes that servant and says, no, that's not what I want or expect out of my servants. To be good and faithful means to multiply what God has given you. And that can be both family finances and your actual cash and capital, but it goes much, much broader than that. It goes to everything that God has given you, your skill sets, your resources, your time, the people that you're involved with. How do you maximize as much as what God has given you, ultimately for his glory? Guys, tell me a little bit more. What's so key to this passage that you enjoy about it, and what are some things that our listeners can benefit from?
One of the fun things that I like about this faith and finance series, we're all followers of Jesus Christ, and we're passionate about infinite banking and how you can apply that to your family banking system. But this faith and finance series, it's a lot of fun because we can talk about our faith and how it applies to finances and how it can help your families. And like you said, John, the Bible references money a lot. It's a creation of God, right? It's part of the system of the world that he has intentionally created. So it's smart to be aware of it and to get wisdom from what God is telling us in the Bible. But so in this series, in our faith and finance series, we'll go in a little more into theology and finance. It'll be fun as we're going through it. And one of the big things that I took away out of this, and I love this passage, but so in and of ourselves, all of us are unprofitable servants until we have that saving faith through Jesus Christ. We can't be profitable without Jesus. And that, I think, is the big takeaway here that it really speaks to me. And then now that we have these gifts of God, that we're part of God's family, he has expectations of how we multiply the blessings that he's given us, whether it's financially, whether, the fruits of the Spirit, whether that's financially or in serving or wherever God's called you. So it'll be fun as we talk through this series, how faith and finance can work hand in hand to bless your family and to bless generations, especially, if you're using high cash value permanent whole life insurance, you can bless generations with what God has given you. And so looking forward to going through this.
Yeah, I love how specific it is, right? It obviously deals with money in these talents, which for me, simplicity's sake, I just call 1 talent $1 million, just because it just makes it easy to think about 1, 2, and 5 talents and doubling those. So the main takeaway I got is, one, just how amazing it would be to, once we pass away, which we're all going to live until we don't, standing before Jesus and him saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant." I just hope and pray that is, like, for me personally, for my family, for everyone I get to talk to, that becomes, a certainty that we get to stand before Jesus, and that is what we're told. And that's what we're passionate about, is helping people. We all have to deal with money in some form or another. We can't not deal with money. And so by that nature, we have to steward it well, right? We're commanded to, in this parable specifically. And so I think, number one, just the reward is so great for eternity. We'll get to enter in the joy of our master, Jesus. And number two, on the flip side, operating in like a scarcity or fear-based mindset, where the servant with 1 talent buries it in the ground, doesn't do anything with it. It's basically losing money, right? Because we all know about inflation, right, in our current day system. And he just says, that I was afraid, I knew you to be a hard man. And, I was afraid that you would be harsh toward me. And really the master ended up being harsh because of what he didn't do. He said, you wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. And then he said, you could have invested my money with bankers and at least earned interest, right? So even back in that time, interest was a thing. Banking was a thing, right? So this is an age-old problem we're trying to solve and do well. And boy, what if we were that banker, right? What if we could just put it in our banking system, earn at least that interest, and all the more multiply and create as, our creator created this world. I think we're, made in his image to create as well. And so we can do that with, monetarily what we're given in this life and do it well.
Hey, did it resonate with you guys when you how Nelson says it's caught, not taught, when the idea of how you can leverage high cash value, permanent life insurance, mutually owned life insurance, it has those guarantees that are in there. And that just resonated with me. Like this whole world is so full of risk. And we have these blessings that we've been given. What a smart place. It just seemed like it lined up just for everywhere, just kind of lined up correctly. A safe place that's growing uninterrupted, that you can leverage, that blesses your family and protects your family. It's all of these, really amazing attributes in this one. And it's not flashy. It's been around for a long time. It just kind of, I was like, wow, there's something really about this, even felt to me like on a deeper level, a spiritual level, like there's something solid about permanent whole life insurance that really resonated with me. And it seems like it resonates with a lot of people of faith that I've talked to that are doing it. It gives you this sense of peace. There's just not a lot of guarantees in this world. And this is one of the ways you can really shore up your family's finances in a way that not only is it you're protecting yourself, but you have abilities. It's growing and you can leverage it for future blessing. So it's really an amazing product that you can use.
Yeah, I start thinking about, which servant am I? Am I the one that's received 5 talents or 2 or 1? As much as I'd love to say I'm a 5 talent guy, but maybe I'm only a 1 talent guy. And in that case, I can understand, I've wrestled with this fact of but what if I screw it up? God's given me all these resources. I don't want to waste it. I don't want to blow it. And so you get paralyzed by that fear to where you do nothing, which is even worse.
Right.
You have to be okay with making mistakes. And I've made plenty, when not only just, obviously the financial mistakes, but across many different factors. It's just like you're human, right? You're making mistakes. You're going to do it. Your family's going to do it for generations to come. But, the important thing is were you attempting to be good and faithful with those resources, or were you being slothful and lazy and, indifferent towards whether or not you were stewarding your finances well or not? Guys, I want to switch gears just a little bit and think, this applies to you as an individual man, as a husband, as a father, but this also could be brought into your entire family unit. And so you as a leader of your household, how do you think of I want to encourage the next generation or my current family members around me to steward those resources. I want to put them in a place where they're empowered and have a vision and a goal in mind. What are you guys doing personally, and maybe what might be a charge to our listeners as to some things that might be worth trying?
That's one of the key takeaways in all the family dynamics that we're talking about, that is just so powerful, that I find the most rewarding getting to serve people towards accomplishing, and that I've seen in my own family, is the generational impact I'm sure you mentioned in the beginning of this episode that we're going to do the book reviews, and I'm sure we'll end up doing Gary Gunderson's book that is now called What Would the Billionaires Do, formerly called What Would the Rockefellers Do? Incredible book that really does outline, a little backstory. I once got a will just through a traditional estate attorney. And the question I got was, okay, you have life insurance. Like, when do you want it to just all, dump out from the account and be in your children's lap? I was like, well, I don't necessarily want it to just be like wasted. Like, I want it to be used for good. I want it to be used for like things that we value and to create more, just like I was saying. And it was just such a foreign concept to this attorney that I asked, have you read What Would the Rockefellers Do by chance? And she said, it's actually funny. She just said, oh, I don't read. I was just like, okay, you're maybe not the right attorney for this type of will or trust. And so all to say, the goal is not to just have this wonderful protection in life insurance and a death benefit to just be wasted away, right? What would the Rockefellers do? And just the concepts that we teach show us how to perpetuate and even build that wealth for future generations rather than have it all be lost in say 1 or 2 generations, in a very similar way to the Vanderbilt family, who by the 3rd generation after Vanderbilt, no one was worth more than $1 million, even though he had billions and millions. So being able to monetarily figure that out through stuff like wills, trusts, settlements, and so forth. Values wise, I think all the more is the important piece for a family to instill, to have a culture of, number one, talking about finances. And I think through infinite banking and through these strategies, it makes it fun to talk about rather than, I'm not sure where our dollars went, or I'm not sure what's happening with these investments, or maybe crypto or whatever it may be. That's just a risk, perhaps. But then instilling those values as a family culture to, one, use the current cash value and all the capital that you currently have towards good and towards multiplying. And ultimately, this enhances giving, right? Our goal is not to produce lovers of money. Our goal is to even enhance giving and generosity, knowing that any dollar that you're giving is probably going to be recaptured or recovered in the form of life insurance, to which you could even give more, or you could really be abundant and generous, which I love. At the end of the parable, in verse 29, he says, for to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. That abundance is not just dollars. That abundance is your lifestyle, your posture towards generosity and abundance, like he's talking about, that I've already been able to see in my family and with other people I get to work with. And I just cannot wait to see, like, 30, 40 years, the rest of the life that God gives me, to see it all play out in as abundant of a way as possible.
Yeah, John, I'll give you an example of what I'm doing in that sense. We're getting a policy, a whole life policy of my wife, and I was looking at what we are giving back to the church each year in our tithe. I was like, I'm going to put that money into a whole life policy. Then I'm going to take it out and then use that money for giving back to the church or in other missions and things that are benefiting God's kingdom. And then I'm just going to I'm giving that money anyway, so I'm just going to fill up the policy, pay the premium, fill up the policy, and just each year that's going to be kind of our tithing policy, if you want to call it that. The new one we're going to start. And so it's just a way of thinking about it, that you have that, you're taking that money out anyway, and you're giving it to your church or you're in God's ministry. Put it into sequence it into a policy first, then take it out. Bless who can be blessed with it. Fill it back up with what the money you would have used anyway, and you can again, you can be I pray that that's a wise, I'm being a wise steward where I can do two things. I can use the money that God has given me. It's his money. I can be smart about it. I can be a wise servant. I can put it into my policy, build protection and grow cash value. And then as that grows, I can keep giving that back to God as it grows. So it's a practical way that we're implementing that in our family.
Yeah.
You can assign your death benefit, like a percentage to that church on top
Yeah.
of that. It's
Right.
already what you're going to give in your current day-to-day. But then should you pass away, you could even assign a bigger chunk without really affecting the beneficiaries, probably, because it's going to be a much larger lump sum of money. So yeah,
Right.
that's
Yeah, one thing that I think that our listeners could do practically here, even this week, and I would encourage us three to try the same thing of, take an audit of your family, mark down everybody's name, and start listing what you think their skill sets, resources, talents, gifts are. And then have each person do that for everyone in the family if they're old enough. And just start thinking like, how do we put those people in the place where they can be optimized, maximized, and grown the most? Right now our kids are young, but still we need to have that mindset of like, okay, as this child gets older and older, we need to be prepared to hand them responsibility along the way and give them opportunities to broaden their skill sets and give them opportunities to steward some little bit of cash at first. And then, as they continue to grow and mature, you can start giving them more and more opportunities, more and more capital to, potentially grow for themselves as well. And I think that's just a great way to teach those skill sets, because public school system isn't going to do that for you, folks. You got to take those matters into your own hands.
Right.
Some other maybe practical things would just be, have your family team meeting each week or once a month, whatever it is, and start asking yourself, okay, with these finances that we've allocated inside our banking system, what is it that we think God is calling us to do with them today and this month? And, what's the vision for the next year or 2 years or 5 years? Incorporate as many people as you trust into that decision making, because you're preparing the next generation at a young age. So when that death benefit does occur, that they've already been primed for stewarding wealth wisely. I think that would be an excellent piece of homework for everyone to do this week.
Yeah, there was an infinite banking practitioner at the most recent think tank who shared a story about how his family and extended family do annual family banking trips or retreats of sorts, where literally it's just all kind of a refresher of what kind of they're doing and how it works for each person and member of the family. And, I can imagine the different topics that come up in those types of annual trips that, maybe one day I'd be able to adopt that type of annual rhythm. That just sounds really, really fun and interesting. But stuff like that to be, intentional, like Derek said, you cannot like delegate raising your children or teaching your children values. It does require that consistent day in and day out, modeling it in your own life, but also teaching and providing those opportunities to practice and fail, in a environment that's safe and not going to ruin their lives, hopefully.
Yeah.
You can do that very intentionally, and that's just one of the fun things to consider and constantly brainstorm.
Yeah, I've even started thinking about and toying with the idea of like, this could be done intra-family. It's not just the Gruning family. This could be the Gruning plus the Castanedas plus the Rob, remind me.
It's hard.
You could combine families together if this is families that you like, trust, and you've maybe got the legal framework already built up. Just this idea of like, you're going to go further faster with other people than trying to do this as an individual. And so that can be your family unit, and it could be across multiple different families, as long as everybody's on board with the same vision, same values. I think that's an awesome way to consider building wealth and me personally, there's several friends and families in our lives that, I've toyed with the idea and mentioned it, and it seems like people are open to that. It's very similar to like a syndication, but you're doing it at a much more intimate level where you're talking about values, you're talking about vision. What is it that God wants us to do? It's not like a hands-off kind of cold, more professional type thing. This is a more intimate, more personal approach to building not only your family resources, but the people that you love and spend time with the most. So some neat ideas to consider.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll add a couple things. One, and I think I've said this in a previous episode, that we believe infinite banking and the financial strategies we teach are the best ways to steward the money with everything we know and research. And we have done a lot of research and discovering and reading. But we do not believe there is a biblical commandment or prescription to practice this. We just believe this is the best way to live that out and steward well. So by no means take our thoughts and education as from scripture. You shall practice infinite banking. We'd love to help anyone with doing that, but by no means I just want to clarify, like, over and over, that there is not a moral significance or sin associated with not doing it. We just believe this is the best way to do it, and there's so many fun opportunities that come from it, which leads to my second point, that none of those joint venture opportunities, Derek, that you're talking about in a familial relationship can happen without a pool of capital to safely draw from. And to have that foundation of, well, my family's protected, even if this joint venture or idea that we have fails, we'll be just fine. And that is a really freeing, and it opens your eyes to so many different opportunities that otherwise, if you're just trying to, find any sort of dollars to save, and it's just a really difficult process, then you otherwise wouldn't have this larger scope to accomplish the vision and mission that we're all on.
Any other key takeaways here, guys, as we start wrapping up this episode?
No, just excited about the podcasts in the future that we're going to be creating. The Faith and Finance series. Infinite Banking Basics. We get a lot of real. What is infinite banking? How do you start it? What's an insurance policy? So that series, the book series, it's just fun to get started on another set of educating our followers and helping people. So I'm excited.
Yeah, we have the best job in the world. I love this so much. Like, this is just so much fun. It affects lives and families, and this is just, I'm so thankful.
Yep, what a blessing.
And we're grateful to our listeners and supporters for sticking with us through the first series. And now as we prime the pump for this one, we hope that you're excited to stick with us as well. We encourage you to have your Bibles open as you listen and look through these passages of scripture with us, because we do think that this is divine wisdom. I mean, this is straight from God. How can we be stewarding these resources to maximize his glory? And so we hope once again that you'll stick with us through this next series. And guys, as we start to think about how do we maximize this and our tithing, our giving, and all of our resources, once again, I want to just encourage the listeners, maybe take that family audit test. Just start marking down, what are the skill sets and resources that we already have available to us? What's the next logical step to help maximize that? Maybe it's starting your family banking system. But the important thing I think I want our listeners to take away from this is the family banking system is just a tool, or as John has said, a means to an end. We're trying to do much more than just having this banking system and allowing it to sit. It's meant to be used. It's meant to grow. It's meant to compound. Guys, I look forward to our next episodes, and I hope you will too. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Thank you for joining us. If you're interested in a conversation about anything we've discussed, you can find our contact information in the show notes below.
And subscribe, follow, and leave a review to help spread this message and to help families across the country discover the generational blessing of IBC. May God bless you, and we'll see you next time.